Hello and welcome to another masterclass. I'm Teresa Voigt and I am so excited and pleased that you're here and you're watching this offering from my heart to yours. Today we're going to talk about living all in, but from another perspective, a slightly different angle, a different way of viewing that concept of living fully expressed. And this perspective is about expression. It's about deep, long, and lasting self-expression. But how do we do that? How do we live in a way that allows all of who we are to be visible and for us to be comfortable with that level of visibility? Now, in the previous masterclass, we talked about living within a structure that's created from other people's beliefs, their expectations, from the way we've been programmed to believe and to think about who we are. And we're going to be looking at that structure from this angle now of how do we show up fully self-expressed and able to live our life in a way that feels a lot more authentic, a lot more true to who we are. So when we're talking about living fully expressed, it is about having a level of transparency in our lives, transparency around who we are. But before we can live fully expressed, showing who we are to the world, to everybody, we have to know who we are. And so there's a level of uncovering, of revealing these layers of who we are so that we can live more transparently. What does that all really mean? It means that when we show up unapologetically. It means that we show up without being ashamed of who we are. It means that when we show up, it means that in the showing up, we allow all of who we are to move with us into that interaction. We don't cherry pick the parts of us that show up. Now, often because of the structure that we've lived within, we do choose, we cherry pick how we show up for other people. And when we're a people pleaser, when we have been programmed to prioritize other people's needs, what their wants are their priorities over our own, we will show up in a way that meets the energy of that programming. And that means that we'll turn up for person A, perhaps a little more informed and able to verbalize and vocalize those opinions if that's in service to the other person's priorities. And then you have person B. Well, we might show up for them being very quiet, not saying anything at all, but simply offering physical and emotional support because that's what we're prioritizing in their needs. So we're showing up in ways that meets and serves other people. Now, that's just two very random examples. And there are many, many ways that we show up. Small adjustments to our energy, to our personality, to our voice that we make constantly so that we are always showing up with the other person's needs being prioritized. And so when we're talking about living fully expressed, showing up as all of who we are, we have to know what all those nuances of our personality are and bring them together. There's a harmonization that has to go on with this so that we feel comfortable with all of these aspects of ourselves being together. It's like King Arthur and the Round Table, okay? We are the table and we need all of ourselves to have a seat at that table. And wherever we go, that table goes with us. All of us moves with us. We don't leave any part of us behind. Now, it doesn't mean that we lead with all of those parts of us, but it does mean that they all get to come. No one gets left behind. Everyone gets to come to the party. And the party in this instance is our life experience. So when we want to be living fully expressed, we have to know all of these aspects of who we are. And the way that we get to know those parts of us is first to sit and ask, who are the parts of us? How do I segment myself? How do I limit how I'm showing up? What part of me am I not comfortable showing to person A, person B, person C? What aspects am I comfortable showing to person A, B, and C? And we start to get an idea of the parts of us that we bring, parts of us that get left behind. So it's about beginning to acknowledge and work out all these aspects of who we are and the parts that we show up with and the parts that we hold back, the parts that we withhold. And once we put them all together, we start to get a picture of all of us having a seat at that table, and we'll start to begin to see where we adjust in order to, again, to prioritize someone else's needs, but their comfort. We prioritize their comfort. And that's a comfort in terms of how comfortable they are with all of us. And some people may not be comfortable with all of us, and that's okay. They don't have to be. But it's very important that we recognize that and acknowledge that in certain relationships, I'm holding back. I will only show up this way for you. I won't be all of myself around all of you. So it's about sitting in the understanding of that, because we will compromise to some extent when it works for us to make that compromise. Because we might value aspects of a relationship and be prepared to compromise how much of us shows up in order to hold and maintain that relationship. And that will work, and that will be authentic for as long as that works for you. When it doesn't work for you, you'll know, and the relationship will start to feel a little off. It'll feel a little uncomfortable. It'll feel constricting. You'll be aware of where you're not saying things, where you're not sharing, where you're not offering. So there's a level of comfort for yourself that will begin to be missing, because you'll be less comfortable showing up as less, and less comfortable prioritizing their comfort. So again, when we go back to living all in and living fully expressed, it is very, very important to understand who you are, because you cannot fully express yourself in your life if you don't know who you are and all of who you are. And this is the sunshine and the shadow. This is the light and the shadow aspects of you. It's not all roses. We're not all made of roses, rainbows, and unicorns. We do have shadow sides, but those shadow sides aren't necessarily negative. They're simply areas of us where we are less harmonious, where we're less comfortable. They're signposts, red flags, if you like, where we want to be doing deeper self-inquiry, so that we can bring them in to the full picture, so that all of those aspects of us get a seat at the table. It's not identification of shadow aspects in order to dismiss them, to heal them, to release them, to get rid of them. It's saying, hey, shadow aspects, what have you got to teach me so that I can know myself more fully? That's the purpose of shadow work, to know ourselves completely, on every level, in all of the ways. So again, when we want to be living fully expressed, we want to start knowing, getting to know who we are on a much, much deeper level and a more expansive level. When we talk about growth, we often think of growth as being a linear line. It's a pathway straight ahead, and we need to follow that path to get to a bigger understanding of who we are. And that's not necessarily wrong, but it's not all there is. Sometimes that growth is sideways expansion. It's a developing understanding of who we are. And this is kind of where we're sitting with this work of understanding who we are to live fully expressed. It's not necessarily this hard push and drive forward. It can be a more gentle and more expansive sideways expression, a sideways delving into the truth of who we are. And when we understand and we accept and we allow ourselves to begin to move sideways with our growth so that there is more room for us, more scope of who we are to come forward, we create space for that to exist. It's almost like we're giving ourselves permission to take up more room, physical room, energetic room, mental room, emotional room, and our heart room. More heart space. We can take up more of that. We know that our brain has a magnetic field and it radiates out from our bodies. Our heart has a magnetic field as well. It's actually larger than the one from our brain. And so when we're living sideways expansion, our heart energy, our heart's magnetic field is given space to spread, which means that we start to show up with a new level of transparency. And it also means when we're talking back to that shadow aspect, that shadow work that we can do, as our heart energy expands out, those shadows have room to come out. They're not all pushed down and squished down in anymore. There's breathing space, and they get to come up and say, hey, we are here and we have some wisdom to offer. Come and play in the shadows for a little while. So it's multi-purposeful when we start to expand and do this sideways growth. And that's the kind of space that we want to be sitting in. So again, back to living all in, living fully expressed, right? It's about uncovering these layers of who we are, knowing more intimately. And I've talked about this before, this level of intimacy with ourselves. We can't be more intimate with ourselves if we don't know who we are. I've talked about journaling before, but as a way to feel where we are in our bodies. And as a somatic experience, that's really powerful and can be very, very supportive. But there's another way that we want to be falling in love with who we are. There's another way to find out who we are. And initially, I've talked about recognizing where we're showing up and where we're not showing up and how that looks, right? But there are other ways. And there's another way which I really love, which is sitting in our heart space. And sometimes all we need is the permission to sit here. With all of our growth and our expansion, our healing doesn't always have to be struggle. It doesn't have to be hard, deep, cathartic work. Sometimes it can be simply sitting here in our own heart space and tuning in to what's going on here. And when we sit here, we are connecting into our heart in a different way. We know whenever we place our hands anywhere on our bodies, it is giving our brain an instruction to drop its focus to that place. So with our hands on our heart, we are saying to our mind, drop your focus. We're saying to our mind, pay attention here. And we're giving an offering and an instruction at a conscious mental level to say, let's go deeper. Let's explore this expansion. Let's see what we can find in this space. And so we sit here and we start asking the question, who am I? And who am I under that? And how does that feel? Is there more? What don't I want to acknowledge? What parts of me am I afraid of? What parts of me need more love? What parts of me need support? What parts of me are wanting to be expressed, but I'm holding them back inside? sit in this space, in this expanded heart space. Give yourself permission to do this expanded work. And you'll start to drop in and feel the truth, and who you are begins to be revealed. I leave you with this. I hope this has been helpful and supportive, and encouraging you to begin to see yourself, to see the idea of living all in, of living fully expressed from a slightly different perspective. I'm going to be doing a lot of these little mini masterclasses, just dropping in, offering these, because there are many, many, many perspectives, and there's lots to explore. And not all of them will land for you. Some you'll just release, and others you'll take on and go, yes, yes, that one lands for me. And so I'm going to keep offering all the perspectives, and eventually you'll end up with enough perspectives that making the shift to living all in, to living more fully self-expressed, that shift is going to get real easy. So I'll leave you with this. If you have any questions, if you would like to reach out to me, please, please, please do so. I am here to be of service. Sending you all big, big love.